Welcome to the Savvy Sizzle webinar. This is one of my favorite ones because I've seen it help so many people, most especially so many women who come under the purview of Victorious Woman. So I hope that I'm trusting that what I share with you today will make a difference to you in your life, because it made a difference to me in my life. Let me just tell you really quickly what happened, how Victorious Woman started. It was right after 9/11 when I wrote Victorious Woman in 2005. It was published in 2005. But what happened was that right after 9/11, a lot of business, you probably remember, after that tragedy, a lot of business dried up. And I used to go to bed at night and say, all right, God, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And excuse me, and so I would say that, and then nothing happened. That was September. We went into October. And then I had this idea to write Victorious Woman. It came to me like in a little capsule. And I just really didn't know what to do with it. And I was doing corporate training and development. So it didn't go anyplace. All I thought was, that's not what I do. And isn't that so often like what happens to so many of us? So we say, well, that's not what I do. We ask for help. We say, God, just tell me what to do and I'll do. And then God tells you what to do. And then you're like, yeah, that's not what I meant. So that's what I did. And I forgot about it. And that little snippet happened just as I was waking up, like in that little twilight space between sleep and awake. Well, I forgot about it. But the very next month, I had the exact same thing happen. In that same time frame, like in that little twilight place between sleep and awake. And I thought to myself, at least this time I made it to the bathroom. I got out of bed and thought, well, that's about women, and I do corporate training and development. And I forgot about it. And then a couple of weeks later, what happened was that I started to have a GYN problem. And it wasn't good. And it wasn't good, but the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. So it kind of went on, and they were ruling things out. They ruled out STDs. They ruled out different kinds of cancers. There weren't too many things left that they could have ruled out. And I was waiting to hear, was it ovarian or what was it? And so that took me till the middle of January. And it was in January when I said to myself, I was sitting in my family room and having a little pity party without the ice cream. And I thought, I don't know if it's ovarian, I don't know if I could do it. And I just don't think I can. So I might just not get treatment and let it go, which is what happened, which is what was happening with one of the women I feature in Victorious Woman, who I'd been taking care of before this all happened. And so then what happened was, after I had a little pity party, I cried, then like this little something came up in me and said, wait a minute, there's probably other women who have gone through this. Maybe if I could find them and they could tell me what they did to get through this and over it, which is what the whole capsule of Victorious Woman was. And all of a sudden, it was so funny. It was almost like I could hear the universe opening up and saying, listen, laughing hysterically and saying, we tried to tell you nice. And you weren't listening. So finally, we had to give you the 2x4 between the eyes. And I know that you know what I'm talking about, because I'm sure it's happened to you at least once in your life. So from that day till 6 weeks later, I thought about it, and I didn't have to think about whether I was going to do it or not. I just had to think about how I was going to do it. And 6 weeks from that day, I did my first interview, and it was with the late Jean Ott, who started a company called Women Unlimited. And I drove up to Little Silver, New Jersey, and did it. She was fabulous interview. She was the first of my many interviews. So that was the beginning of focusing on the Victorious Woman Project. So a lot of what I'm sharing to you is with the stepping stones that I'll be talking about in a minute, came from exactly that place, from talking to those women, and not just the women I feature in Victorious Woman, but the many, many other women that I talked to along the way. And I learned, and I did a whole lessons learned piece. So that's what I want to share with you today. So let me bring up my PowerPoint. Okay. Now we're on track. So what I want to talk about today is Victorious Woman, how to reignite your savvy sizzle for 2022. So here's what we're going to do, and we'll start from the bottom of the pyramid. So we're going to talk about first, what is savvy sizzle? And the second thing I want to talk with you about is, so many of us have been in a rut these last year and a half. Remember when it was, let's take 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and 2 weeks has turned into a year and a half. And I was talking to one of my friends about a week or so ago, and we were talking about how people are feeling. And I said, I don't feel depressed. I don't feel sad. I just don't feel like myself. And she said, yes, she said she works in HR. And she said, the sense I get from almost everybody I talk to is that everybody feels heavy. So much has happened, and we just need a little bit of time to reverse everything. So I included in today's talk 5 rut reversers, and we'll talk about those in a minute. I talked a minute ago about lessons learned from the women I interviewed. So I call them stepping stones, or habits the habits that make up a lifestyle. And we'll talk about the 4 lifestyles. I want to share with you 3 God-I-know secrets for how to get 2022 on track. And of course, your always superpower. So we'll be talking about that. Okay, so what is savvy sizzle? I always like the idea of like a little bit of sizzle in my life. What's savvy sizzle? Well, if you're savvy, then you're smart, you're practical, and you're determined. You've done that. You've been like that. It's kind of knowing what to do and how to do it. The savvy comes in setting goals and creating victories. The sizzle, that's the pizzazz. And that's from the victory. Now, here's what I learned from the women that I interviewed, and from my own life, and from the hundreds and hundreds of women I've talked to since Victorious Woman was first published. Victory is that stretch you make out of your comfort zone to get from where you are to where you want to be. Sometimes that making that stretch, even just the first step of that stretch, is so very hard. And yet, it's the only way that you can really create a victory in your life. It's the only way you can really create a success. But here's the other thing I learned about victory. Once you have a victory, once you step out of your comfort zone, once you expand that space around yourself, you can never go back. You'll never go back, because once you, so if you're here, like, and this is your little mold, and you're here, and you stretch, the likelihood that you'll go back is slim. You'll stretch, and then you're here, and you want to do something else, and then you stretch a little more, and you stretch a little more, and you stretch a little more. And the more you stretch, the more confident you get. The more confident you are, the more you're willing to take different kinds of risks. And the more you take different kinds of sensible risks, the more fabulous your life gets. And that is the pizzazz. The sizzle. The pizzazz gives you the sizzle, and the sizzle comes in the victory. So that's what Savvy Sizzle is all about. So let's talk with 5 tips to get out of a rut. First thing is focus on the things you can control. You can't control a lot of stuff that's going on today, but there are things that you can control. You control what you do every day. You can control your habits. You control what you watch on TV or what the things that you listen to. I remember one time, I was always a fan of that TV show, Criminal Minds. Excuse me. And a woman said to me, well, one of my relatives actually said, I can't believe that you watch stuff like that. It's all about killing women. And, to tell you the truth, I've always been a fan of mysteries. I never thought about it. But after that, I started to look and I thought, that really isn't something something good I'm putting inside my mind. For whatever reason, not that I think it's going to happen to me or that I would do any of that stuff to anybody else, but it's a piece of negativity that I don't think I needed to have in my life. So that was something I could control. I can control how I spend my money. I can control how I react to things. Other things I can't control what's going on in the world. I can't control what's going on in my neighborhood most of the time. So the first thing for getting out of the COVID rut, you can't control what's going on with COVID, but focus on the things you can control. And this is one of my favorite things. Become the leading lady in your life. And a lot of times, especially for women, we're told to downplay our successes, stop doing some of the things that we're doing, not be as excited, not push ourselves out there. And sometimes when we see other people doing it, and for me, I remember growing up and I had a brother who was always telling me how fabulous he was and how I wasn't. Excuse me. And so I came to really dislike that whole idea of putting myself out there. But I want to read this to you, and I have to read it because I never get it right unless I do. But some of you will remember there was a movie called The Holiday. And in The Holiday, there's an older gentleman who was talking to his young counterpart. They went out to dinner. She was having a hard time. It was Kate Winslet played this part. And his name was Arthur in the movie. And he was talking to her. He was giving her advice. And he said to her, this is not a hard one to figure out, Iris. In the movies, we have leading ladies and we have the best friend. You, I can tell, are a leading lady. But for some reason, you are behaving like the best friend. To which Iris says, you are so right. You are supposed to be the leading lady of your own life, for God's sake. Arthur, I've been going to a therapist for 3 years and she's never explained anything to me that well. That was brilliant. Brutal, but brilliant. And that, my friends, is a reality. We are behaving like our own best friend instead of, and they say be your own best friend. Well, that's really nice, except in your life, you have to be the leading lady. If you aren't leading your life, somebody else is. And they are likely to be leading in a direction that you aren't so happy to be going. I've often thought that when we let other people take the lead. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes I like being the follower, but only if it fits in with my overall plan. When it comes to leading my life, I need to be in charge of that. Because if I'm not, somebody else is going to be doing it. So become the leading lady in your life and figure out a way. Some of what I'm going to be telling you in a little bit will help you do that. It is about stepping into your own power and stop denying that you have power, because you certainly do. And when you really, really want something, or you're really, really against something, you use your power. Many times we're accused of using it negatively, and sometimes we don't know how to because we're not used to using our power. Learn how to use your power to benefit what you need to do in your life. Say yes. Shonda Rhimes wrote a book a couple of years ago, and it was the year of saying yes. And she realized that as accomplished as she was, Grey's Anatomy and all that, she shied away from doing things. So she decided one year she was going to say yes to everything. And things opened up to her that she had never thought could even possibly open up. And not only that they opened up, but that she ever thought she could do. And then she did them. That increased her sense of confidence and personal power. So start saying yes. Don't say, yeah, I never do that. No, I don't do that. Say yes. Now, another thing is you're motivated by your values. What are they? There was a woman one time who, I did a whole thing on values, and she said, well, I think I have bad values. And I said, why is that? She said, well, I value manipulation. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute. And this was in a class. And I said, what do you mean by manipulation? And she said, well, when I want something, I know how to get it. And she described how she did it. And I said, well, so as she went on, I said, and you do that because, and it turns out that when we went backwards and backwards, as long as if manipulation made her feel safe, because she had been in positions where she was out of control, or that people had done things to her. So when she was in charge, and if it wasn't going the way she wanted, she would get nervous. So she would manipulate people to get what she wanted. When it came back to, when we went back and back and back, it was all about feeling safe. So what she really valued wasn't manipulation. What she really valued was safety. And frankly, I think that women are, generally speaking, are not attuned to just how big a deal safety and emotional safety is for them in their life. But knowing what you value, you're going to live by your values, whether you're paying attention to them or not. So as long as you know what they are and you're clear about them, then you'll know how you're leading your life. And while the values direct your life, you live by your habits. And you know this to be true. When you wake up in the morning, you have a little routine. You get out of bed, you go to the bathroom, wash your face, you brush your teeth. You do it by habit. You don't even think about it. There are certain, maybe you cook dinner at night, and you habitually cook the same things. I always think that was when I was growing up. In my family, in many Italian families, you had soup on Monday night, you had pasta on Tuesday night, you had meat on Wednesday night, you had pasta on Thursday night, you had fish on Friday night. I remember one of my friends telling me that every Wednesday they had veal cutlet. Everybody had veal cutlet on Wednesday night. So she didn't like veal cutlet. She couldn't even go visit her girlfriend and stay at their house because they were having veal cutlet. So if you think about the habits, whether it's food or the way you drive or the way you get dressed, you live your life by habits. I want you to pay attention to what your habits are, and coming up, we're going to be talking about the stepping stones. The stepping stones are how you choose to live your life. They're your go-to lifestyle. They're the habits. And what happened was I discovered that when I talked to women, and that's how I kind of grouped them together, they had certain habits, certain things that were habitual to their lifestyle. Whether it was a way of thinking, a way of behaving, all of those things, a way of acting. And they did so many things by habit. I was able to group them into 4 lifestyles. Those lifestyles either support or sabotage you, and 2 of them do support you and 2 of them sabotage you. Let's talk about those. The first sabotaging lifestyle is the victim. Now, this is somebody who has a pattern of thinking. Their habit is always thinking, poor me, it's not fair. Nothing ever goes right for me. Everybody's against me. So the filter that whenever anything happens, that filter of the victim is how they see everything. It's a pattern of thinking. As a result of that pattern of thinking, they make poor choices. It becomes a vicious cycle. They're here with this, they make this poor choice, and that puts them in a bad spot. Then they make this poor choice, and that puts them in another bad spot. And then they make another poor choice and puts them, and it just goes around and around. And somehow they don't really realize that those poor choices they don't connect them to their problems, you know? They, instead of saying, you know, I could make better choices, they don't. They just say, this is how it is. It's always like this. This is how it's going to be. You know, poor me. Everybody's always against me. It's no surprise. Murphy's Law. They use those kinds of things. When you try to help them, what happens? Yeah, but, and there's always a reason why it won't work. My best story about this, and if you've been around me for a while, you've probably heard this before, so I'm apologizing in advance, but maybe you haven't. There was a woman who went to my church, and she was out of a job. She had no technical skills, so she wasn't able to get a job. She didn't know how to use a computer properly and stuff. So we all wanted, and she was going to lose she was out of money. She was going to lose her apartment. So we all got together and got enough money for her to take some courses so she would learn the new skills that she needed so she could apply for a job and be back on her feet. And that was really a good thing. She's supposed to pay for a class like on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was. And we'd given her the money. And then there was a Star Wars convention in town. And she spent the money on Star Wars memorabilia. And when we who put the money out, were obviously annoyed because that's not what the money was for. And she said, well, you just don't understand. You don't understand. I was depressed. I needed a pick me up. There was not a thought process that the pick me up would have been going and learning a new skill and getting a new job and getting back on her feet. So she was angry with all of us at the church who were not understanding of why she spent the money. And she still wanted us to be like handing her stuff. Well, nobody at that point was willing to do that. And she was willing to still come to church, but she wasn't going to be getting any more handouts because she wasn't in a place where she was able to utilize them. I mean, if you gave her food or something like that, that was different, but she ended up going to live with her mother, who they had a terrible relationship. And she continued to see herself as a victim of life. But it was all of her doing. Sure, life gave her a couple of smackdowns, but it gives you and me a couple of smackdowns. It's what you do with those smackdowns that makes a difference. And that pattern of thinking, that poor me, it's not fair, makes a huge difference. Then there's the sabotaging lifestyle called surviving. And you know what? This is where I think the majority of people live on a regular basis. Majority of women, not everybody, but a majority of women. But it's a very interesting one. The surviving woman, it seems upbeat and positive. Now, you probably like her. She's not unhappy, but she's not happy either. And you can't really tell what's going on a lot of times. She's not satisfied. And what I always say is she forgot to put herself on the list. And you know that list, and you know, like people ask you, can you help me with this? And they're on the list, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're not on that list. Talk about not being a leading lady. Everybody else is on that list but you. Okay, maybe you're not on the list, but if you're on the list, you're at the very bottom. And you know, like let's say you have a list of 1 to 10. And with everybody else, as you cross people off that list, everybody else moves up. You never move up to the top of that list. And here's what I think is the saddest thing. You're not on anybody else's list either. So you're surviving your life instead of living it. This woman has a PhD in coping and accommodation. I call it the curse of the comfort zone because instead of making that victory stretch out of your comfort zone, it's easier to watch TV. There was a woman one time who called me. She wanted me to do some coaching with her. And she said, and we talked about it, and she said, well, I'm doing this and this and this and this. All things that she liked to do. She was part of her choir at church. She liked, she went out. There was a meeting she went to once a week that she liked going to. And it wasn't like a 12-step meeting or anything. It was just a bunch of women who got together once a week. And a couple of other things. And I said, so she told me what her goal was. And I said, okay, that's really good. I think that goal is doable. So which one of these 4 things that you're doing are you willing to give up? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, it seems to me that the goal that you want to achieve is going to take X amount of hours a week. And we had kind of talked about how many hours. So where are those hours going to come from? You have to give one of those things up in order to make space for the goal that you want to achieve. And she got really upset with me. Like she didn't want to give up these things that made her feel good at it, that they were part of her comfort zone. Clearly, she wasn't somebody who wanted me as a coach because she did not want to give, that comfort zone was important to her. Somehow she wanted this little miracle to happen. I was going to tell her this miracle thing that was going to help her have that goal. And excuse me, and then that was going to be great. And she could still do these other things that she liked doing. It just doesn't happen that way. And if you were to join me in my workshop in the new year, that's something that we would be talking about. Like, what are things that you need to shift? You don't need to give those things up forever, but if you have a goal that you need to accomplish, there's only so many hours in a day. You're probably doing 3 hours worth of stuff that you don't need to be doing, or that you can put off to the side while you're putting those 3 hours towards achieving your goal. But if you insist on staying in that comfort zone here, instead of expanding it out, that's never going to happen. But that's the thing. So many women have that, what I call it, a PhD in accommodating and coping. It's like, yeah, I know. I was going to go back to school, but then my daughter needed this, but it's okay. I can deal with it. I'm tired of hearing women say, it's okay, I can deal with it. Because when they say it's okay, I can deal with it, they're putting themselves on the back burner and letting someone else step up to the front burner when they don't really need to. And that person that they're putting on the front burner isn't likely to put them on the front burner at any time. It's very disturbing. And I've seen that. I've seen that even with couples. When I talk about the 5-year marriage, I've seen that with couples where she runs around and she's coping with the kids and the job outside the home and the social stuff and the stuff at school. And she needs to step back. And she needs him to step up. And he's not willing. She's like, that's all right, my time will come. Yes, we had a conversation about it and we decided this is how it'll be for right now. And then my time, then like later on, when the kids are all in school, that's when it'll change. And when it doesn't, then that's makes her feel angry. I'll bet you know people like that. The surviving woman settles for what she can get instead of going after what she wants. And that's really critical. A woman I talk about, excuse me, in Victoria's Woman is Annie, not her real name. I had to stop one day and remember what her real name was. She had raised her kids. Kids were all adults. She had grandkids. And she wasn't happy. She wasn't unhappy. She had a nice life. She had great friends, very active with her church. But she wasn't satisfied and she made bridal gowns for people, beautiful bridal gowns. The one thing that she wanted to do was open up a bridal shop, and her spouse would not even talk about it, just wouldn't even talk about it. And when she told her girlfriends, you're just having a midlife crisis. And then she got cancer. And she decided not to have treatment, which is how I met her. Her daughter asked me to give her Reiki sessions, and I gave her Reiki sessions for a couple of months. And we used to talk about, well, if you lived, what would you do? And that's where the whole bridal shop thing came up. But nobody would support her. And if she couldn't do the one thing that she really wanted to do, she didn't see any reason to live. So she refused treatment. I saw her, she was diagnosed in August. I started seeing her in September. I saw her up until the day before she died in January. It was just easier to check out than to stop becoming a surviving woman. Don't let that happen to you. There's too much life in you. Become an advancing woman. This is a lifestyle that supports you. In this lifestyle, you are on the list. You expect to be taken seriously. If you, in her case, her spouse wouldn't even discuss a bridal shop, and they had the money. It wasn't a case of money, and she certainly had the time. He just didn't want to be, he didn't take her seriously. So often we get these ideas and then we get patted on the head. It's like, that's a cute idea. Don't let people talk to you like that. It's not a cute idea. If you really want to do it and you can figure out a plan to get there, then do it. And if people in your life aren't willing to help you, find people who are. This is the advancing lifestyle knows that that relationships are a two-way street. Too often it's us doing for other people and they aren't doing back for us. Relationships are a two-way street. And your life isn't haphazard. You make the decision to do something and then you move it forward. You're proactively taking care of your needs and desires, and you're willing to step out of your comfort zone. Those are the two biggest things. It's you're proactive. Maybe you need to go back to school and get a degree. I went back to school well after I graduated high school. I was halfway. I had enough credits for half my college degree, but I didn't have a college degree, and I was successful in business already. I went back and got my degree. It wasn't something I needed to do, but something I really wanted to do. And I can tell you that when I went back, and it was hard, I was older, way older than graduation from high school. But what happened was, in the very first class that I went to, we had to write a paper every week. The woman who ran that class, the professor, took me aside one day and she said, "You have a talent." And nobody had ever said that to me. I don't think I would have ever written, I wrote articles, I've been writing articles, but I don't think I would ever have considered writing a book had she not said that to me. Sometimes you just never know where things are going to take you. So, getting a college degree was fabulous. One of the great victories of my life because it was way out of my comfort zone, especially at the age that I was. But you know what? It opened a door to my first book. So that supporting lifestyle is the advancing woman. You're advancing your life. Sometimes you're advancing like this. Sometimes you're advancing like this. And sometimes you're advancing like this. You never know how much it's going to be, but it doesn't matter. Even if you're only advancing like this, it's advancing. The other supporting lifestyle is the victorious lifestyle. And when I interviewed women, there were mixed blessings for this. Like when Maureen's spouse left her alone with 5 children. And the week after he left, called the utility companies and said, I'm not responsible for the bills at that house anymore. That was the thing, that those were the 2 events that were catalysts that led to her victories. It was a mixed blessing. She had some really hard years. She was raising 5 kids. The youngest one was very young. The oldest one, I think, was about 8 or 9. She ended up getting a job as a teacher and taking the 2 younger ones with her. They had a daycare at the school. She found a way to do it, but she would have been just as happy not to have that happen in her life. But she stepped up when it did. It was a big stretch, and very often that victory is a big stretch out of your comfort zone. The victorious woman pluses herself. How many times do you plus yourself in the day? Your kids call, your friends call, and they tell you this, and then you say, oh, but you're a really good person, or you're so talented, or you tell them something that pluses them. How often do you plus yourself? One thing I learned about the victorious woman is it's not her permanent home. So if she's here and advancing, and she steps into the victorious stepping stone, and she enjoys it for a period of time, but somehow that woman who's truly victorious doesn't stay there. Did you ever meet somebody who has like a little something happen, they get some press or something, and then they spend, like maybe they were star debater on the high school debate team, and then spends their whole life piggybacking off that one thing, and not necessarily in a good way. The victorious woman doesn't do that. She's like, this was great. Let me enjoy it now. And she enjoys it for a period of time. But then she gets itchy, with something I call divine discontent. It's like something in the back of her head that's itching and said, there's something else I want you to do. And so it's not, victorious isn't her permanent home. She's always looking for more. And then she returns to advancing for skill building. So the sabotaging lifestyles are victim and surviving. Those are patterns of behavior. Those are habits. If you have the victim, if you're always thinking of yourself as a victim, that's a habit. You can stop that habit. Same thing with surviving. If you're always accommodating everybody else and nobody's accommodating you, that's a habit. You can stop that. None of those things are going to be easy, but that's the only way that you can move into advancing and then on to victorious. There are 3 secrets for getting what you want. There's a formula for success. You have to know what to do. You have to know how to do it, and you have to do it. How you use that formula is shaped by your habits. Excuse me. If you're a victim and you know what to do, and your habit is to always feel bad about yourself, you can put that formula out there, but you're not going to, you might even know what to do. I've known people who know what to do and know how to do it, and then they just don't do it because why bother? It's not going to work out well anyway. You have to look at the stepping stones, and you have to look at the habits that you have formed, or new habits that you can form to help you do this. And let me tell you about this formula. If you know what you want to do and you know how to do it, and 2 out of 3 doesn't cut it, you have to do the 3 secrets. You can know what to do and know how to do it, and then watch TV all day and nothing's going to change. Or you can know what to do and you can be willing to do it. I see this with a lot of younger people, but they don't have a clue about how to make it happen. or they're really good at organizing things in their head. They have a lot of ambition to make it happen, but they're not really clear about what it is they want. The formula is you have to know what to do, you have to know how to do it, and then you have to do it. And how you use that formula is shaped by your habits. So think about this. What are your 2 most productive habits? Are you somebody who always follows through? Is focus one of your good habits? What are your 2 most productive habits? I always do what I say I'm going to do is a habit that you have in your head. What are your 2 least productive habits? Are you a procrastinator? Are you an accommodator? Yeah, I had this thing to do, but you know what? I know that you need my help right now, so I won't do this. If you always have a habit of putting yourself last, you're not the leading lady. That makes a difference. So think about your 2 most productive and your 2 least productive habits. And here's the big thing. Your biggest obstacle is always going to be your mindset. If you have a mindset that you can make it happen, it'll happen. The victorious woman, on the stepping stone, the victim stepping stone, that woman's mindset is always, I don't know why I even bother because it's never going to happen. I don't know why I bother because everything's always against me. I know a woman who I learned a lot from her because I didn't always have that mindset that said, and then I slip back. It's none of us are perfect, and my mindset can slip into places I don't want it to go, and that happened during COVID. My mindset, this is never going to end, but I was clear about the need to get control of my mindset, to shift my mindset, to do things to build my mindset. And there was a woman I learned a lot from, and there were things that I thought of that never even crossed her mind. So while I was we were doing business together for a little bit, and while I was doing, yeah, but what if this happens? She never even thought of the what if. And I would sit back and watch her and thought, that's why she's able to do some of the things she does, because she never thinks of the what ifs. She was good about this could happen, safety. She was always good about safety, but didn't have a lot of yamas in her head. It's like, well, what if I don't do a good job? What if I do, none of that. She had none of that. And it was a big lesson that I learned from her about mindset. If you find yourself doing yamas in your head, I'm not good enough, I can't really do this, shift your mindset. Do whatever you need to do to shift your mindset. It's one of the things that we talk about in Savvy Sizzle workshop, because sometimes, and it has happened even when we've been in group, where somebody says something that says, and doesn't even realize it's part of it, there's a mindset that's holding them back. But having that conversation in group, we're able to illuminate that. And sometimes you don't even know and would be happy to change it. You just don't even know that you're doing it. So that's one of the benefits of in the Savvy Sizzle group that is likely to happen. Your always superpower is emotional energy. I think earlier I said something about emotional safety. That emotional energy is so critical for you and me. And the best way I can explain that is the kind of energy you have. Let's say you're planning for your wedding or your daughter's wedding, and it's exhausting. And yet the things that you can get done along the way, and think about the last 10 days before the wedding, the stuff that you get done would make anybody else's head spin. Am I right? Like, I don't know how I did it, but I got it done. Or maybe it's a project at work and you're on a deadline. You're like, oh, I just don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And then somehow you do. Well, that's your emotional energy. That's that energy from inside that just keeps pushing you forward, pushing you forward. Now, it's true that when the project is done or the wedding happens, then you're exhausted, you're done for a week. But in the run up, when you needed that emotional energy, you had it. It's about passion and power, and it pushes you forward. It starts in your brain. I need to get this thing done. And then it permeates your mindset, your whole body, pushes you, gives you energy that sometimes you didn't even know you had. Feel like you have no emotional energy? Here's 3 ways. Love what you're doing. I have like almost no energy for cooking. I can put a meal on the table, and I like what I cook, but I'm not chefy. I'm never going to be chefy. It's not something I would ever say I love to cook. I don't. But I love to write. And sometimes early in the morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock, I can be writing. And that boosts my energy for the whole day. And maybe I didn't finish an article, or maybe I didn't even do anything worthwhile to write in that moment. Writing is editing. So sometimes I write and then I need to do more editing. But if you want to boost your emotional energy, love what you do. For me, it's one of those things is writing. Give up multitasking. We're so good about doing that. We're always so good about saying, well, I can do this and this is, it's like that stupid commercial, like the woman, it's like, I can fry bacon in the pan. I can make the bacon fried up in the pan, whatever it is. That was so stupid. And that was just like one of those things that I think like some men got in a room and said, let's tell women they can do this and they can multitask their lives away. Give it up. You're better off doing this and then doing this and then doing this, and you will get at least as much done. So give up multitasking. Sucks out your emotional energy, and walk away from toxic people. If I had to tell you of all of the 3 of these, the most important one is this one. Walk away from toxic people. I have done that several times in my life, and what I find with toxic people, one of them was a relative, and walking away from that relative was very difficult. And yet the toxicity was that whenever we were together, if there was something I said that didn't follow the prescribed format of the conversation, if it was contrary to what they said, it was not unusual for that person to get up and curse and walk out. When I made, and then something big happened, and I had to make that decision to walk away from that relationship. And it was very hard because there were a lot of extra things that went along with that. But I was also, in giving up that relationship, I had to give up some other things that were really important to me and meaningful. But once I walked away from that relationship, I remember thinking, oh, being in a relationship with that person was always like walking on eggshells, because you never know when you were going to say the wrong thing and that person was going to blow up. And that was no longer in my life. It was like, oh. Being with toxic people just sucks the life out of your brain, sucks the life out of your heart. And for what reason? If you're in a business and you need to sometimes have small bouts with somebody toxic, maybe you could do it and then flip the script afterwards. But if you have somebody like that in your life all the time, I don't care if it's a spouse or a kid or a mother or father, doesn't matter who it is. And sometimes we outgrow people. I had a conversation with a young man years ago, and he said that he worked I was teaching at a historically Black university. And he said that when he went home, it was hard because he'd hang out with his old friends and then they'd start harassing him about, oh, you think you're better because you're going to college. And it got to the point by his senior, senior year in college, that it was really wearing on his ability, shifting his mindset. He felt like if I change too much, I won't be able to fit with them. And I remember saying to him, you have to realize that sometimes you outgrow people and they served a purpose in your life for a period of time, and then they don't. And if they no longer serve a purpose in your life and they're making you miserable, you need to walk away. Figure out the toxic people. And this is a great time of the year. This end of the year is a great time to be doing this, because you can make a list of people who need to find their way out of your life. You don't actually have to say, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. You just find a way to let them leave your life. Like maybe you say, every time they come to you and they say, I need you to do this. And you say, oh, I really can't do that for you. And eventually they stop asking. And then they find their way out of your life. So you want to walk away from toxic people. Remember back in the day when you used to say, this time of your life, this midlife would be my time? Well, you know what? It's here now. This is your time. 2022 is a blank page. It is yours to write. So what'll it be? What does my time mean to you? I want you to join me next year, starting right after the new year, for the Savvy Sizzle No Regrets Masterclass. Here's what I have for you. 4 one-hour classes on Zoom, just like we're doing here. Except when we do it on Zoom, you'll be able to have breakouts with other people. You'll get the Victory by Design ebook, which starts with values before vision. So we talked earlier about values. I want you to think about your values. And before you have a vision of something that you want to do, know what your values are, because your values are always going to run the show. During the time of that month that we're together, I will give you a 30-minute private coaching call. And in fact, you can use that anywhere up to a month after the class ends. So you can go through the 4 classes and you can work your way through those. And then maybe a week afterwards, you want some help. That's a good time to say, can I talk to you? Can I have my 30-minute call? And then about a month after the class ends, I'll do a follow-up Q&A class, and that's an Ask Me Anything. That class, usually I schedule it for 1 hour, but I let it run for 2 hours, because if you depends on how many people are on the call. But if you have that one question that you absolutely need some help with, not only does it help, am I there to help you, but other people can help you in the process. Maybe somebody in that Victorious Woman network has something for you. So the No Regrets, Savvy Sizzle No Regrets Masterclass is from January 11th, 18th, 25th, and February 1st. And it starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will tape it the way I'm taping this one, and you can listen to it later. It'll be yours to listen to for as long as you want to listen to it. And we'll figure out the follow-up class later on. Here is the link. And so what we do in the class is this: you're going to focus on a goal. Remember I said what to do, how to do it. Focusing on the goal is the what to do. We'll have some direction with the how to do it. So sometimes you can put some stuff together and then you forget this, you forget that. When you bring that to the class and we share it, people are able to help you figure out your plan more effectively. Sometimes do it yourself. Do it just by yourself is a little hard. But when you have a coach and you have some other people with you, it makes a difference. Then I give you the do it stuff, tips for identifying and working through obstacles. And you're going to hit them. I don't care who you are, how easy it is. You're going to hit some obstacle, whether it's a toxic person, whether it's some external something, whether it's a mindset problem, you're going to hit an obstacle. I'll give you some ideas on how to get yourself motivated and stay that way. And during the time of that class and through to the follow-up class a month later, you have our support, you have my support, you have the support of the other people in the class. They can give you feedback, encouragement, and validation. And that's, and sometimes, did you ever notice that sometimes all you need is somebody to say, "Atta girl." It's like, I did good. Yes, I can keep going. That happens to me a lot. Sometimes I'm like uphill, uphill, uphill. And then somebody says, "Yay." And it's like being at the top of the hill. So join me for that starting in January. Again, it's January the 11th, 18th, 25th. And if you sign up between now and Thanksgiving in 3 weeks, it's the cost of the course is $697. I'll knock $200 off, so it'll be $497. And that, I'm telling you, is a great bargain. Because you're getting a ton of information, you're getting a ton of help, and you're going to be able to make 2022 fabulous for yourself. So I hope that you will join me. There's a coupon, which I don't actually have for you right now. So if you want to sign up for this class, before you do it, send me an email at annmarie@annmariekelly.com. Tell me that you want to join the class. I will send you back this link to you with the $200 off coupon. And then I'll look forward to seeing you in the class come the beginning of January. This is such a good time for us all to be doing this because we're in a group. We've all been through COVID. We're all tired of it. We're all ready to move on. And everybody's willing to help everybody else do that. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for taking your first steps into a savvy Sizzle next chapter. And I look forward to seeing you. If you have questions, send them to me at annmarie@annmariekelly.com.